deck he's a very big fan of. Playing against blue-white control, you see a Precinct Captain, a couple soldiers in play right now for Scott. A couple of lands out there, Temple of Enlightenment ×2, a couple basics as well. You see a Scribe from Temple of Enlightenment being resolved right now as well. Against Hatch playing mono black aggro deck that we have seen a decent amount of, as Herald Torment's going to get in front of a Precinct Captain. A card that we don't see a lot of in the sideboard of blue-white control is Precinct Captain. 4 of them in the sideboard for Scott.
Yeah, we usually see Night Veil Spectre in that slot. Looks like Ryan's on a damage race plan here.
Looks like a favorable one.
Oh, for sure. Precinct Captain unchecked is pretty hard to beat for most decks.
Precinct Captain, a card that's quite good against mono black aggro as well.
2/2 First Striker is already good enough. Anything beyond that's just gravy.
And there's your blocks. Hatch is going to go down to 2, 1 from the Herald trigger. So it doesn't look like a great position here for the mono black aggro player. Again, Gregory Hatch, finalist at the Star City Games Las Vegas Invitational at the end of last year, losing to Max Brown in the finals. As he's going to concede this game, so we'll head to a third one. Played mono blue devotion there, played mono blue devotion last week in the Invitational, but if you talk to him, you know that he's been wanting to play mono black aggro for some time and finally pulling the trigger on that.
And speaking of adaptations to Tom Ross's list.
Oh, really?
Greg Hatch in the sideboard with 3 copies of Festering Newt and 2 Bubbling Cauldrons.
Ah, sounds like someone went a little deep this weekend.
I mean, Festering Newt against Tom's deck is really good. That card's super powerful.
Yeah, absolutely it is.
And with the Cauldron, it's just,
well, I mean, everything just starts to have a little fun there.
Yeah, you can do the math.
Yeah,
you at home can do the math.
I think people forget about the old Bog Brew Witch that's legal as well. That limited format seems like a long time ago.
He did not go that deep.
What's Greg got in his sideboard here? Maybe win this one since we're moving to game 3.
4 Duress, 3 Festering Newt, 2 Bubbling Cauldron, 2 Doomblade, 2 Erebos, God of the Dead, 2 Devour Flesh. Typically you see mono black aggro. They have some number of creature removal slots main deck. In the control matchups, you're taking your removal spells out. You're bringing some more Duresses, some copies of Erebos, God of the Dead, what have you. Now that he's seen Precinct Captain, he may have to reevaluate how he's sideboarding for this matchup. I don't know if he's going to want to go so far as to actually bring in Doomblades and Devour Fleshes, but he may want some additional removal spells because Precinct Captain unchecked is very hard for him to beat. He has 4 copies of Lifebane Zombie in his main deck, but of course, Precinct Captain a little faster to the ground than Lifebane Zombie is going to be in most games. Ryan can't necessarily cast it on turn 2 100% of the time, but he'll often be able to. And I think shoring up that card, but still keeping in most of his anti-control cards is how Greg's going to want to approach the matchup.
Ryan Scott with a lot of useful tools in his sideboard. 4 copies of Soldier of the Pantheon, 4 Precinct Captain, 2 Bramaz, King of Oreskos, 2 Detention Sphere, 2 Celestial Flare, and a Planner Cleansing. So taking a much different approach than what we have seen on the Open Series as far as blue-white is concerned. His main deck does have 3 copies of Cleansing and no Spheres, but this creature plan that we oftentimes see Night Veil Spectre, much different this go-around. Precinct Captain a little lower to the ground. Looks like he wants to be better against Boss Sly and other aggressive decks. Bramaz as well, leaning in that direction. So you have to imagine those 4 captains and 2 Bramazes will come in. Maybe Spheres, maybe not. Soldier of the Pantheon a little bit slow, and these creatures that Greg's going to lead off with outside of Rakdos Cackler aren't multicolored. So I don't think I love Soldier of the Pantheon as something in this matchup.
It's not very good, but it may be part of a full conversion on Ryan's part in just to a creature deck. And I've never seen 10 slots before devoted for a blue-white creature conversion sideboard. We see Archangel all the time, Soldier of the Pantheon, Precinct Captain, Bramaz. You see these cards scattered around lists. I don't know if I've ever seen the full 10 come out of someone's sideboard.
Yeah, looking to be a little bit lower to the ground. Players do not want to lose to hyper-aggressive decks, as we saw last weekend and in Providence as well. Hyper-aggressive decks is where people look like they're going towards. And it looks like players in Vegas have no interest in losing to those type of strategies.
I think Ryan's probably got a really good Game 2 deck because he gets this full conversion that people are not going to be anticipating. Game 3, when Greg can go back to the well and bring in a couple more removal spells and not be quite as susceptible, and the fact that you're turning on his Lifebane Zombies, maybe a different story.
Well, both players will shuffle up here. Game 3 will be underway shortly for you. We did see Oslab Vodovich lose earlier this round. We'll see if Greg Hatch can get another win. Again, playing mono black aggro, taking a long drive last night through California and Nevada to get here from the San Francisco, Oakland area. That's no short one.
No, Bay Area to Vegas is not a short drive.
Yeah, I think that's in between 8 to 10 hours.
Yeah.
But he wanted a game. We don't come to the West Coast a ton, but he's got some friends in the area, and he said, I do want to do battle here. Invitational did not go the way that he wanted it to. Looking for the opportunity to potentially redeem himself. Scott taking a look at opening hand here. You think there's a Detention Sphere. You see a Bramaz over there as well. Mono black aggro deck, again, we saw in Providence in the hands of 2 players in the top 8 doing very well.
Yes. And it's been a deck that's had some PTQ success in the Northeast. It's not out of nowhere. And it's just sort of slowly but surely accumulated good content. You know, one drop here, a different removal spell there, and suddenly you have a deck.
Feels like the deck is just missing one piece to the puzzle. Not sure what that piece is or what it's looking for. Got plenty of good cards at all stages of the game, but looks like it's just missing maybe one card to put it over the top.
The toughest thing about the deck in my experience playing with it is you can't have too many removal spells in your deck because your blue-white matchup starts becoming a lot worse. But you need to have some because otherwise, of course, our crew fix and so forth become a real problem. So finding the right mixture of removal spells was the biggest challenge that I found.
Hatch with a Swamp coming to play tapped. He's going to lead off with a Gnarled Scarhide. So a good start here for Greg. He does have 2 discard spells in his hand, and Duress and Thoughtseize, but of course he'd like to get the ball rolling with a creature and then fire up those discard spells.
Yeah, lead off, get something on the ground, and then start attacking.
Temple of Enlightenment there from Scott does scry. You see Hatch is going to take a draw here. Hatch curious where that top card went, and it did stay on the top. You saw him pick up a copy of Doomblade. So it doesn't look like he's as creature heavy as before. He's got some more reactive spells, a little bit of proactive cards here in discard.
But the Doomblade coming back in means that Greg is quite worried about Precinct Captain, as well he should be. It's a very tough card for Mono Black to beat.
Hatch with a Spiteful Return. So the aggression is certainly in play now. Going to attack for 2, put Scott down to 18. You see he's got removal spells and discard. You saw a Precinct Captain the draw there for Scott, and he's going to be able to deploy that. So you have to imagine that's going to bite the Doomblade that Hatch does have in hand.
Hatch set this up now. He's drawn a Swamp this turn, which is really important. With the second Precinct Captain in Scott's hand, it's possible Greg plan was to just Doomblade a Precinct Captain and then attack. That would have fallen apart if there was a second Precinct Captain involved. But now that he's drawn a 3rd land, he gets the Thoughtseize this turn as well. Take the other Precinct Captain if he's worried about it, Doomblade the one in play, and get a really good push.
Time for a Thoughtseize. Here's the hand for Scott. You see a Divination, 2 copies of Dissolve, a Mutavault, and a Precinct Captain. And the way that things are lining up here for Hatch, looks like things are lining up very well for him.
Yeah, this is great. You get to Doomblade the Precinct Captain. I assume he's going to Thoughtseize the Precinct Captain. None of the other tools in Ryan's hand provide very much. He still has a Duress left over in all this if, Ryan divinates and finds something reasonable. So that Swamp that Hatch drew this turn is a big deal. It sets the whole stage for him to pick apart Ryan's hand and break up his board.
And you see the Lifebane Zombie there in Hatch's hand as well. We'll see what he wants to take with the Thoughtseize. I think if I'm in his situation, I'm just going to go with the Precinct Captain. That seems to be the most troubling. Dissolve, actually cards I don't really care about. And then Divination, sure, my opponent may cast that next turn, but then I can Duress and take the card that he found.
Yeah. And it's also slow. I mean, Hatch is hitting for 5 here.
Oh, yeah.
And if your opponent takes off the turn next turn, that's another 5 points of damage.
At a virtual 8 already.
Yeah.
So Hatch will take those 2 lines of play. You saw the Thoughtseize take care of the Precinct Captain. And the attack here for 5. Scott gonna cast that Divination. So gonna go down to at least 8 with the potential for more. Hatch will untap. Time to take a draw here. Picks up another Swamp, so we could see this plus Lifebane Zombie on this turn, which is pretty good. See, it looks like a Celestial Flare along with 2 copies of Dissolve and 2 lands. So right now, if you're Hatch, you're hoping your opponent does not peel Supreme Verdict.
This is the issue with Mono Black in the games you don't have Mutavault. There's a couple turns here after you've attacked their hand where you're just crossing your fingers, hoping they don't find the way to finish you off. And yeah, I think that the way this game is shaping up, Hatch is just taking Celestial Flare, casting his Lifebane Zombie, and hoping to fade a couple draw steps.
I think that's all you can do right now. I don't think you can really play around anything. You don't want to give your opponent more time to find a Supreme Verdict, so you just hope that it's not there within the next 2 cards, and if it's not, chances are you probably win.
Right.
And it's not that the game is over if Supreme Verdict does come off the top of the deck, because there's Lifebane Zombie. Hatch already knows the cards in the hand. This will be an attack for 5. Scott's going to go down to 8, and right now it's on Ryan to actually draw Supreme Verdict here. And I think that may... Is that it? It looks like it's a copy of Last Breath. That looked like a Supreme Verdict for a moment. But just the Last Breath, and I say that, but Last Breath's actually still pretty good in this situation.
The Mutavault checks the Spiteful Return. Hatch gets to cast that in for 2 whenever he wants to. He gets to block the Gnarled Scarhide. Now the problem is that if he blocks, then he doesn't even have the opportunity. If he trades with his Mutavault, he doesn't even have the opportunity to rip Supreme Verdict next turn, because the one land he has in hand comes into play tap land, is a Temple.
Yep. So Hatch says, I would like to attack if you don't mind. And Scott says, I actually have some responses here. And Scott says, I'm going to fire off this last breath right now. Take care of the gnarled Scarhide. Hatch will gain a fairly irrelevant 4 life. Now able to come in here with Life Bane Zombie for 3.
This still sets up a lethal turn next turn, where Hatch gets to attack with an unblockable Life Bane Zombie and also connect with the Spiteful Return trigger.
You see a Temple of Enlightenment there for Scott. Take a look at the top card for a moment, but the draw for the turn was actually a pretty important one in Detention Sphere.
He had to answer the Life Bane Zombie this turn or he's dead, so this is a good start. It still sets Hatch for a lethal attack next turn because the Spiteful Return is 3 points of damage and then the trigger is lethal.
Spiteful Return looking very good here as Hatch does draw a card. Now, Herald Torment with Bestow is going to make it a lethal one. Greg Hatch is going to win this match over Ryan Scott 2-1. Mono Black Aggro taking down Blue White Control. Very good, very good draw for Hatch that game.
Yeah, and sideboarding back in the Doomblades was critical. Being able to answer those precinct captains that clearly caused him some trouble in the second game was a huge factor in him taking game 3.
So Greg Hatch, invitational runner-up from Las Vegas last year, able